What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of Best Bets and Props, where I go over all of my betting action for this weekend's UFC card, which is UFC 290 out of Las Vegas. We have two championships on the line for this weekend's pay-per-view. In the main event, the featherweight belt defended by Alexander Volkanovski as he welcomes Yair Rodriguez to the octagon. And in the co-main event at flyweight, we've got the reigning defending Brandon Moreno as he welcomes a familiar challenger in Alexander Pantoja. Awesome rematch in the co-main event at flyweight. 14 fights on this card, a lot of top-notch talent. There's a lot of short notice replacements as well, and some clear mismatches on this card. So as such, there's 14 fights right now on the schedule. 8 of those 14 fights have a minus 300 favorite or more. You know, there's a lot of minus 1,000 plus favorites here, multiple of them. So it makes the betting very challenging this week to find spots that we're not paying a lot of money for. We're trying to find, you know, some low risk, high payout spots that we're pretty confident in. And out of these, I have 2 money lines that I've bet. I have 1 live betting opportunity I want to attack on this card, and I've got about 4 or 5 props as well. So not a lot of action for myself. I mean, it sounds like a lot of selection, but I'm not wagering a whole lot on many of these things. But I do have some recommended props that I like, but I haven't actually pulled the trigger on at the end. So hit the like, hit the subscribe. This should be a shorter video. I try to make this one brief. And this week, without, you know, my normal slew of money lines to explain, it should be rather concise. So moving into the first money line I have, which is actually in the first prelim fight of the night. At lightweight, I've got Esteban Ribovics to defeat Kamwela Kirk. I took Ribovics' money line at minus 140 for 2 units to get this victory. And this is a fight between 2 different styles here. We got Esteban Ribovics, who's a very aggressive, powerful striker, making his second walk to the UFC cage. Very dangerous guy. I think he's the more dangerous out of the 2 men in the cage in this bout. He's got proven cardio as well, even though he's got a 100% finish rate coming into the UFC. He went to decision in a loss against Loic Radzhabov, where he got out-wrestled, but showed urgency to get back up to his feet, made Loic work, and actually hurt Loic in several spots there. So ultimately lost the bout due to giving up control time, but against Kamwela Kirk, who's a technical counter striker who's making his 3rd walk to the cage, and now this is his first fight up at 155. So that's something to note. He's moving up a weight class for this bout. And Kirk is a grappler by trade. That's his foundation skill, but he rarely looks to take the fight to the mat. He could probably do that in this fight against Ribovics, who doesn't have the best takedown defense, but his scramble and get-up ability is pretty good. So give me Ribovics to just push the pace of this fight, bring the fight to Kamwela Kirk and outstrike him, potentially even ending the fight inside the distance. Like I said, 2 units on Ribovics at minus 140 for the first fight of the night. And the second money line I have is a big underdog here. It's a women's strawweight fight between Denise Gomez and Yasmin Jauregui. And I'm taking Denise Gomez as a big underdog at plus 310 on the money line. Just a half of a unit investment on this big underdog. But look, both women are very young, aggressive strikers that really show no fear as they move forward and strike against their opponents. And they're both really new to the UFC. But Denise Gomez, you know, I would say this is just a widely mispriced money line because we've got Yasmin Jauregui, who does have a 10-0 professional record. She's 2-0 in the UFC, but, you know, she's beaten Yasmin Lucindo in a debut last year, and then she just got a round 2 TKO over Estela Nunes. Even though she did face adversity early in that fight, getting dropped herself, I don't see why she's a minus 410 favorite over Denise Gomez. I think that undefeated record is really getting baked into this line here. And Denise Gomez, she's not really that big, you know, there's not a big size disparity here. You know, Yasmin's not that much taller or longer reach than her. And I think their skill sets are pretty comparable. I'd probably line Yasmin Jauregui as like a minus 190 favorite, not a minus 400 or minus 410 favorite the way it's lined now. I think if, you know, Denise Gomez makes some rapid improvements here and Jauregui has sort of a flat performance, I think Gomez could easily take this decision. You know, both girls are powerful, and Yasmin Jauregui's got nice striking, but she tends to stay inside the pocket and linger there for too long. and she eats a bunch of punches that she could easily avoid if she was more of an in-and-out style. But she likes to brawl, as does Denise Gomez, and Gomez certainly has a grappling upside in this bout as well. She doesn't have any submissions on her record just yet, but we saw in the Loma Lukbumi fight she's pretty proficient on the ground to get reversals and threaten submissions. So again, women's strawweight bouts, you would assume that this probably does go to the scorecards more likely than not. We see wacky results in these women's fights on the judges at all times. So just by nature, I think this money line is worth taking a stab on. Plus 310, just a half a unit on Denise Gomez to come through as an underdog for a second time in a row. The last money line I have not placed, but I plan to, if given the opportunity, is in the co-main event for the flyweight championship. I'm taking Brandon Moreno to retain his belt, but I'm looking to live bet this spot after round 1, possibly even after round 2 as well. He takes on Alexander Pantoja, who's a very dangerous grappler. And although Brandon Moreno has lost to Pantoja once before in the UFC and once in an exhibition match on The Ultimate Fighter, that was years ago. Brandon Moreno was like 21 and 24 respectively in those bouts. So a lot has changed since then. I think Brandon Moreno is a much more polished striker, and he's got a ton of championship round experience, good cardio in those rounds, and he really builds into a fight late. So if he struggles with the grappling, if he gets controlled in round 1, possibly even round 2, I think we can get a good live number on Moreno moving into the later parts of the fight where he will take over. So if after round 1 he gets controlled but not submitted, then I can find Brandon Moreno closer to minus 150, possibly, hopefully even closer to plus money. I would take that for 1 to 1.5 units there. So that's how I would seek to play this. I don't like the number on Brandon Moreno pre-flop right now. I think it's a bit too wide. Pantoja is certainly live to pull off the underdog spot here, but Brandon Moreno live after round 1 or round 2, I think he builds into the fight and does his better work in rounds 3 through 5. So give me Brandon Moreno for a live bet here at the flyweight division. Moving on to some props I have for this card. I've bet Volkanovski inside the distance to defeat Yair Rodriguez, plus 160 inside the distance for Volk, for just 0.75 units invested. So just 3/4 of 1 unit. And I'm even seeing plus 185 for this prop on FanDuel, but I've already bet the plus 160. That's what I got. And I'm also taking 0.15 unit sprinkles on the Volkanovski in round 3 at plus 1,200, Volkanovski in round 4 at plus 1,800, and Volkanovski in round 5 at plus 2,800. Once again, kind of like Moreno in the Pantoja fight, at flyweight, I think Volkanovski will also build into this fight, slowly breaking down the dangerous striker in Yair Rodriguez, proving that he's a guy who's really leveled up, has much better striking output, wrestling output, and a guy who can just outpace pretty much anybody. That's what Volkanovski has proved so far. Even high output strikers like Max Holloway, he's beaten 3-0 over the course of their trilogy. So Volkanovski is just on a different level. His durability, toughness, and in-fight ability to make reads, I think, is second to none at this point, especially at featherweight. So I think he does get this job done later in the fight, probably by some sort of like wrestling, maybe some ground strikes and things like that, over an exhausted Yair Rodriguez, who spent the first part of the fight trying to kick Volkanovski's legs and head off. So later down the stretch, inside the distance at plus 160, and those round 3, round 4, and round 5 sprinkles at 0.15 unit apiece. The next prop I have is a violent spot. I've got the fight does not go to decision at minus 175. Just 1 unit invested on this next prop for the Robbie Lawler-Nico Price fight. For this fight not to see the scorecards, I like this spot quite a bit. I know Robbie Lawler, the former welterweight champion, he's been notoriously durable over his career, but notoriously powerful as well. But we saw his chin get cracked. His durability is starting to fade as he reaches, now this is his retirement fight. But last year against Bryan Barberena, he did fall defeat to a standing TKO stoppage due to a barrage of strikes in round 2. So now at 41 years old, knowing he's making his last walk to the cage and taking on a very dangerous Nico Price. But compared to Bryan Barberena, Nico Price is more dangerous than Bryan, but I think he's also less durable. So that would lead me to believe that Lawler does have a chance in this match as well. Robbie Lawler still at this point, he's powerful, but he's also very technical. likes to get in people's face and have sort of a technical brawl, right? That southpaw boxing style. He kind of slips and rips, and his speed isn't quite what it used to be. His reflexes obviously are not what they used to be, but I still think he's dangerous enough to land on the chin of Nico Price, who throws big looping strikes but keeps his hands completely down when he does throw those kicks and punches. So he's open to getting countered, but I think he's a super dangerous threat himself against the old man, Robbie Lawler. So one of these guys I think falls victim to a loss by TKO. I'm going to lean towards Nico Price as the slightly younger man to get this done. I know he's like 33 only, but he's starting to look like he's wearing all of these fight miles at this point. So a lot of this narrative just leads me to believe that this will not see the scorecard. So minus 175 on BetOnline, 1 unit invested on this one at 170. And moving all the way down the prelims and at the bantamweight weight class, Cameron Simon versus Terrence Mitchell, the under 1.5 in this bout at minus 155. I put 1 unit on this bout. I like Cameron Simon to win. He's a minus 550 favorite, and I think, that's just naturally a bit wide for a guy who's not that proven and pretty young at the weight class, but he's taken on a short notice replacement fighter in Terrence Mitchell, making his debut off the Alaskan FC regional scene, where he's had all of his bouts in his pro career except for one. He came onto the Ultimate Fighter years ago in 2016 and got knocked out viciously early in the first minute of round 1 against Kai Kara France. Returning to the Alaskan FC regional scene, this guy has not faced very much competition at all. But when he does, he tends to smoke these guys with flashy kicks and punches. And lately, he's been actually taking guys down and submitting them as well. I don't think either of that is going to work against Cameron Simon, who's probably a much better technician in all areas of mixed martial arts at this point. Very good kickboxer, and I think Cameron Simon gets the knockout within 1 round. But the under 1.5 is at minus 155, so they've got 7.5 minutes to make something happen here. I think Terrence Mitchell will start fast. He's a guy with 100% finish rate himself, mostly in round 1. So I think he's outmatched against Cameron Simon, but even if he does pull off the upset, at least that'll fit his win condition as well here for 1 unit at minus 155, the under 1.5 at bantamweight. So that wraps up all of my betting action on this card, but I do have some recommended props and some additional ones that I do like. These are ones that caught my eye. I agree with them, but I just didn't get to investing on it. In the Alonzo Menefield and Jimmy Crute fight, I like violence quite a bit in this one, which is a rematch from earlier this year, where Menefield almost knocked out Jimmy Crute in round 1. It was a miracle that wasn't stopped, and then again in round 2, he was in all sorts of danger. So both guys don't have a good gas tank. Both guys, Menefield is powerful in round 1, but gasses late. Jimmy Crute is a guy who has round 1 knockout potential as well, but a very good submission game on the mat. I like the under 1.5 at minus 115. That fits both guys' general winning condition. Most of their bouts have ended in that time frame, so a pick-em price tag for how they usually win and lose. I like that. The under 2.5, if you want to be safer, is at minus 255 on DraftKings. That could be used as a potential parlay piece, because I really don't think we see another spot here where these guys go all the way into halfway through round 3. I think this ends pretty early in round, potentially round 1, or at least early round 2. So I like those violent spots for Menefield and Crute. But on an opposite one, I like the over 1.5 at plus 105 for Tatsuro Taira against Edgar Chairez. So Taira's a massive, like, minus 1,000 favorite over the short notice debuting Edgar Chairez. But Chairez is a good striker. He's dangerous in round 1. And at this 130-pound catch weight, I think Taira is a very patient and mature beyond his years fighter who's got good BJJ but doesn't force the issue. He's not going to put himself in harm's way and risk things going poorly for him. I think he's going to have trouble figuring out how to get in range and find a takedown on Chairez in round 1, but Chairez usually fades in round 2 and round 3. I think that's when Taira takes over, and I think we do cash that plus 105 going over 7.5 minutes. And then we see Taira take over and probably get a submission in round 2 and round 3. So the over 1.5 for that 130-pound catch weight at plus 105. I like that spot. Here's one that's a little bit tricky. I like Robert Whittaker to win in round 3 or by decision. That combined prop over Dricus du Plessis is generally on some books like minus 125, but you can flip that to plus 125 if you build that prop on the DraftKings Sportsbook same game parlay. So if you do the Whittaker money line and then add the over 599.5 seconds, which would be going over the end of the second round, or that leaves open the round 3 possibility and going to decision. So That's plus 125 for Whitaker in round 3 or by decision. He's pretty much a decisionator at this point. The guy's a former champion, very good technician in all areas of the game. He's taken on a guy who's a complete wild man in Dricus du Plessis, a very powerful finisher. But I think he's going to serve a vet lesson up for Dricus du Plessis. But, Dricus gasses out sometimes towards the end of round 1, works through that fatigue, but I think he's going to be a punching bag in round 3. And Whitaker will have a chance to get a finish, something he hasn't done in many, many years now. But this is a big step down in competition compared to who he's been fighting the past handful of years. So if he wants to get that opportunity, I think the best time to do it is in round 3. Otherwise, he goes and does his normal MO, which is winning by decision. So to get that at plus 125, that transforms Whitaker's money line from minus 400 down to plus 125. So I like that spot quite a bit. Those are the recommended props, the additional spots I like, all 4 of those. Look, it's just a tough card to find good spots on. I like the obvious spots. The Jack Della Maddalena round 1 KO, but, God only knows. That'll be like minus 200 or something. Not going to play that. The round 1 sub for Bo Nickel has not been released yet. I can only imagine that's going to be north of minus 200 as well, even if we're lucky. And I like the Vitor Petrino knockout over Marcin Prachnio, but since Prachnio is super chinny, Petrino's got a lot of finishing power and knockouts in his record. I think that's a little bit too rich for my blood too. These are spots you normally be getting a lot of plus money on, but for this card, they're making us pay extra for it to earn less in return. So I'm not about that, but I did my live stream with Brady from DFS by the Numbers, and one spot along with that Bo Nickel fight that he did point out was, what if they released the under half of a round prop for Bo Nickel at plus money? Would that be worth a stab? And I think that would be worth a small investment. He's got such a step down in competition in this bout. Just in terms of like athleticism, I think he's going to be way faster than Val Woodburn. So I think he does follow what he's been doing for his 4 professional bouts so far. And Bo Nickel takes him down in like 10 seconds and submits him in under 2.5 minutes. So if they release that under half of a round for Bo Nickel at plus money, I think that might be worth a look, too, as a sneaky prop if you're feeling lucky this weekend. So, again, comment down below on the ways that you plan to make money. If you disagree with my picks, I never get offended. Go ahead and sound off on why you think that is. And, just brainstorm ideas. We're all in this together trying to beat the bookies week in and week out. So, thanks for watching, you guys. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and I will be back next week to break down another Fight Night card. So, stay tuned, and good luck in all of your betting action. Cheers.